Sounds right. Sounds right. Sounds right. Soundstripe.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. 1 second, let me activate the Instagram real quick. All right, so what's going on, folks? This is our first live stream in a while. Before I get to that news, though, we have with us a gentleman of much good work. Oh,
you said gentleman, I'm looking.
Of much work and of much labor. Before I give you the full intro, we have this gentleman with us here is one Rupert Meghnot. So the way that
people high.
the way that we met each other is Rupert is the coordinator and like put her together of everything Orlandopreneur related.
You can say that.
Yes, this is the genius behind it here, or at the very least, the face of it all.
I like Genius better. Yeah.
So, you guys, this was something that I thought would be awesome because the Orlando area is a budding area for entrepreneurship. And there are some key players that you will see at multiple factions. I was also shocked to see Rupert at there's another networking event called the 1 Million Cups, and he was there as well. So the man is truly plugged into everything related here. So as we get into this, I'm just looking forward to picking your brain, Rupert.
Just use a dull spoon. That's best. Yeah.
So, Rupert, let's go ahead and set up for the folks. Tell them your age, where you come from, what you do for a living, and some hobbies of yours.
Well, I'm not going to tell you my age, but I do have Moses's autograph.
Hey, look at that.
And Rupert Meghnot, and I am the founder and chief collaboration officer of Orlandopreneur.
Hey. So everything I said, but just amplified.
Pretty much.
Awesome. And hobbies of yours?
Hobbies? I love anime.
What? You love anime?
Oh, I love anime.
What do you know about anime?
What do I know about anime? I've seen every episode of One Piece.
Ain't no way.
All 1,106 of them. I've seen maybe 80 or 90 different animes. I'm watching Cyberpunk now. I'm still waiting for One Punch Man season 3.
Oh, snap.
And Dr. Stone season 3.
Oh, man.
And what else did I finish watching recently? I've been watching.
That's wild.
Cowboy Bebop, of course, and stuff like that. Dragon Ball is what got me into it.
Of course, the
love me
absolute
some
goat of
Dragon
it.
Ball, man.
Oh man, R.I.P. to the great
Yes, Toriyama.
Akira Toriyama.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man. So, real quick, audience, I gotta indulge this a little bit here.
What?
So, what got you? So, Dragon Ball got you started. What age
Yeah.
did you first ever see that?
I saw it in. So I just started teaching project management at the game design master's degree at Full Sail.
Oh.
And one of my friends had one of my cohorts had a figurine.
Okay.
Right? Like
one of the statues or like little Funko Pops?
One of the statues. Of Goku.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, "Who's that?" And he says, "Oh, that's Goku." And I said, "Goku, who's that?" And he says, "Go check out Dragon Ball." And I said, "Dragon Ball?" And I said, "Yeah." So I'm a couple months, I forgot about it, and then a couple months later, I'm online and I'm and I see Dragon Ball. I said, "Oh yeah." So I watched an episode. It was like season 7 or 8 or something like that.
Yeah.
And I watched it and I was laughing my butt off. and I was like, "Hey, this is a cool story, you know?" And so then I went to the first episode and just started watching it from. I'm very systematic.
Mm-hmm.
So I watched everything from the first episode and watched all the way through.
Wow.
And then I said, "What other anime are out there?" And then Blue Submarine 6 and Black Lagoon and all these other things started popping up. And
naming all the good ones.
I just started watching them all. And I didn't really read any manga until more recently.
You're into the manga as well.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah. But there's only so much time in a day.
Yep.
And so I only get to watch maybe an hour or so a week. So
I find myself trying to chip away at a manga or like a piece like on Saturdays is when I'll get mines in. Yeah. For your Dragon Ball episode, was it actual Dragon Ball or was it Dragon Ball Z?
No, it was Dragon Ball.
Okay.
So when I got the Z, and he goes Super Saiyan for the first time, I was jumping up and down.
Man.
My wife at the time is like going, "What's the matter with this guy?" She's like looking at me strange. She did the entire marriage in now we're not married. So
Oh man.
now I can be strange all by myself.
Oh man. Okay. So, and I cut you off somewhere in there.
No,
I
it's all
asked you
good.
about hobbies. There we go.
Hobby. I mean, at this point in time, I really don't have any hobbies. I love television. You know, I watch shows like For All Mankind is my favorite one right now,
Awesome.
which is amazing because it. I don't know if you're familiar with the story, but the story basically is that the space race never ended.
Oh.
So us and the Soviet Union, you know, the Soviet Union landed on the moon first, but then we landed together, you know, physically landed together on Mars.
Oh,
and so,
snap.
you know, here it is 2003 in the movie or in the series. And I think it's season 3 or 4 now. And, you know, it's 2003 and we have a few hundred people, 500 people living in a colony on the moon. Ooh. And we've got another 250 on a colony on Mars. And we all have iPads and hell, we had those things in the 90s.
Oh, wow.
Right. And
this is forever All Mankind, you said?
For All Mankind, yeah, it's on Apple TV. So you know, watching that but
okay,
and a
so you
few
like
other things. I'm rewatching. I just finished watching the live action One Piece, and now I'm rewatching the Cowboy Bebop again.
What did you think of that?
I
the
enjoyed
live
it.
action?
I enjoyed it.
Yeah?
I thought it was fun. I love the way they portrayed the characters.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty good.
So you thought it was, I know there have been some live actions like the live action Death Note. People are like, I've ripped my hair out. The One Piece.
The live action Gantz was just legit.
Oh,
my God.
yeah, I saw that.
My God.
Oh man.
that was like
I was
blood.
shocked at how accurate it was. And there were some scenes where like she looked a little bit more sinister than in the show. I'm
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
wow,
Yeah.
you guys did that.
Yeah. But yeah, you're right. I mean, it's they're hit or miss, right? I don't know why people didn't like Cowboy Bebop. I liked it.
Yeah, I know there were some that were very picky about like the Bleach one as well. I mean,
Have you seen the Naruto one?
I did not know that was a thing.
Yeah.
What?
yeah,
On
yeah,
Netflix?
Yeah.
Oh, snap. I know what I'm doing after we finish this.
And Rurouni Kenshin.
Yeah. That's one that I've heard people, like, some people swear by it and some people are like,
Well, the movies are really intense. The sword play is the best I've seen.
ooh,
Yeah.
I love me some good sword action in there. Oh, man. Dope. So,
Everybody be kung fu fighter.
right? So, Rupert, man, set up for the audience. Help us to get to know you as a child. What was your like home life like?
Alone. So I was pretty much a latchkey kid. So, up until I was 8 years old, my mother would wake up at like 7 or whatever and roll me up in a blanket and take me to some old ladies, Mrs. Dimmer's house, and go to work. And then I'd wake up at her house, and I'd hang out during the day and whatnot. And then of course, when I started going to kindergarten and whatnot, then I would just go from there. And then go to bed at night, and then my mom would come and around 11 o'clock and wrap me up in a blanket and take me home, and just repeat that. And then when I was 8 years old, we moved to a place I grew up in inner city Detroit, and so after the riots, my mom's like, I think we probably, because I got, I'm 7 years old and my bed's shaking in the morning. I'm like, what the hell's going on? And then I go downstairs and I see tanks and half tracks going down the street. And I'm like, So then we moved to a place where the school was right across the street from the apartment. And so she would, same thing, but this time I just stay home and then I just walk across the street and go to school and come home for lunch and go back and
Man.
And then, pretty much.
And I suffer a bit when it comes to knowledge of events. Detroit, tanks in the street?
Yeah.
What was that even
The
happening at the time?
riots in '67.
Okay.
Yeah, Panic in Detroit. David Bowie.
Hot dog.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man. So you then went to
The
a
sky
place
was
where
all black. You know. It
fire
was
in the buildings.
two streets away, 2 blocks away. Yeah.
Hot dog.
Joy Road in Wyoming for you Detroit people. Yeah.
Man. So you guys, and it was what, a couple of years that y'all stayed there, or like?
Well, I was there from, I don't know, maybe 2 years old or so until about 8. Yeah.
Mm.
And then, yeah, it was pretty intense. It was kind of funny though, because, inner city Detroit, right?
Yep.
And it's like, and I was a little light skinned for most people, but I mean, all my best friends and whatnot were all black. It was so funny because I met my stepbrother or my half brother for the first time when I was 6. And the first thing out of my mouth was, "Look, Mom, he looks just like us." She thought that was funny. Yeah.
That reminds me, when I was a kid, I was over at my godmother's house, and I am my skin tone, and I have several siblings spread out across different mothers. So I was talking with my godmom, and I'm like, "Hey, godmother, when can my brown brother come over?"
Your brown brother. She says, "Why do I need a brown one when I got a Dijon one here?"
I think it's so funny, just as kids, like it comes out so like, this is just a natural thing. We say, "Hey, let's, we see these differences."
And that helped inculcate in me a knowing that we're all one race and we're all, that's it.
Yeah.
Right? We all bleed the same. We all go through the same joys and the same, agonies and things like that. And whether you believe in evolution or you believe in the Bible, the fact of the matter is they started from 2. Either way, they started from 2. So
100%.
we're all brothers and sisters. So
yeah, man. Yeah. So you guys,
some of them on the other on one side.
I'm adopted.
Okay. All right.
So you guys move over at the age of 8 years old.
At 8, we moved to a suburb. Yeah. And then after that, we moved to another suburb, and then after that, another one. Kept going north.
Oh wow!
I thought we were going to be in Bay City by the year 2000.
And then where did you start to take most of your influences from in your teenage, adolescence age?
Bruce Lee was a big one.
Oh,
Was a very big one. And then, but so my family is, my mother's side of the family is from Iran, and we were Baha'is, and which were persecuted in Iran, still are persecuted in Iran. And one of the things we believe is that if you're going to be a Christian, be a good Christian. If you're going to be a Muslim, be a good Muslim, right? And so when I was 12 years old, my mom was like, "Okay, it's time." And I'm like, "Time for what?" And she said, "You need to find your path to God." And I'm like, "Okay." So I spent, the next 8 years going to every mosque and every church and synagogue and everything that I could go to, and meeting with pastors and rabbis and monks and everything, and reading all, the Bible and the Old and the New Testaments and the Bhagavad Gita and the Quran and everything else. And then, I went to a military academy for high school, or my last 2 years of high school, and I'm sitting in my bunk, and I'm just like sitting there, and all of a sudden, poof. Why am I here? To please God. Well, how do I do that? Well, I help my fellow man to the best of my ability. But how do I do that? I have to help myself to the best of my ability so I'm better able to help other people. I kind of got those two confused. So I wound up helping a lot more people than helping myself.
Oh, man.
Or at least, so yeah.
Oh, that's
and being an entrepreneur doesn't help either. Yeah.
Oh, oof.
Yeah.
That's it. So, and you said at what age did you come to that point where you're
17.
like 17?
Yeah.
Wow.
And so then I decided at that point I wanted to change the world. So Actually, I knew it since I was 14, but at 17, it came into focus.
Yeah, you're like, this is what I'm gonna do. So at 17, you have that realization, and then you mentioned that you were doing stuff at Full Sail. So from that decision, then you said, okay, was Full Sail like a no duh for you? Of course, this is where I'm gonna go, or like, how'd you end up going there?
I had to give you enough time. I don't think your show's long enough for me to give you all the context. But to answer your question, I had helped get the Rosen College at UCF started, and so they were trying, getting accredited and everything else like that. And they said, well, you got to teach something. And I'm like, what am I going to teach? And at that time, I had a company doing, well, for lack of a better term, flight simulators.
Okay.
But we're doing them for arcades and parks and whatnot.
Yeah.
So I went to one of my park buddies at Universal, and so he was the VP of operations at the time. And so he says, meet me there. So we're over there, and we're walking through the gates of or the entrance of Islands of Adventure. And he said, it's your first day on the job. And I'm like, yes, sir. And he says, let me show you my liberal arts graduate, this $20 million high-tech, pointing to the Hulk, right? Here's this $20 million high-tech, system, and all you got to do is just push this button right here. And I said, got it. So I created a course on entertainment technology, teaching liberal arts students roller coasters, propulsion systems, simulation systems, how they all work, arcade games, pinball machines, all that kind of stuff, and then software and so forth for crowd control and weather control and fast passes, all that stuff.
Wow.
And then Full Sail was developing their they wanted to develop their game. It's a misnomer. It's not a game design. That they call it a game design master's degree because somebody submitted the paperwork and that wasn't what it was supposed to be. It was supposed to be a game production master's degree. But in any case, they were getting that GDMS program started up, and one of the woman I think that was in charge of the program, we knew each other, and she was like, "We need this guy." So I went in there and I taught project management. So
Okay. And this was from the age of 18 through?
No. This is in 2008.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Oh man, 2008. I think
so this is many years later.
Yeah. I was looking at going into Full Sail myself, and I graduated in 2012. Were you still there around that time?
I was there.
Really? Oh man,
you look familiar.
Cap.
So what program were you in?
I was gonna do audio stuff. I used to rap
Recording
at the time.
arts. Did you work with Chris?
I never went. I didn't pull the trigger because I was looking at like Bright Futures and all that stuff, and I just didn't have my SAT scores were not
Here he
good.
is doing podcasts. Go figure.
Look at that,
right?
Yeah. I was only prologuing it.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was there for 6 years before I got laid off, and but at the time I started Burnout Game Ventures, and I had that going, and I'm in the process of exiting out of that right now. So.
Oh.
And that changed the game industry, the $200 billion game industry. So.
Right, because you work with, was it esports type of thing?
Not so much esports, but I was just working with entrepreneurs in the game industry.
Okay.
And helping them be more successful.
Man, that is so you're like your bent towards entrepreneurship kind of started after like that Full Sail course of the 6 years?
No, I got into gaming initially in '89, doing VR projects for Martin Marietta, and then later Disney and Universal and other places and so forth. Just a project here or there. I didn't have like a full-time job or anything like that. And then I started my simulation company in 1995, and was doing games.
That's when I was
for
born.
that. I was doing games for that, and yeah.
Man. So
I was going to all the game developers conferences and E3 and, traveling the world and going to all these places. Started speaking at a few of them and so forth. So
E3. Oh man, that's
E3 was
a
great.
dream one day there.
well, it's no longer. So
Oh, is it not?
No, they don't do it anymore. But the game developers conference is still going on. It's still pretty cool. Yeah.
Because I know like nowadays, pretty much any game has some type of like sub tournament environment. And I thought all of that was still through E3. I didn't realize it had disbanded.
Yeah. Yeah. So E3 is just the show,
Yeah.
But IAPA is here in Orlando.
Oh.
International Association of Amusement Parks and Attractions.
Mm-hmm.
And 3 weeks later, it's ITSIC. It's the Inter-Service Industry Training and Simulation Education Conference. So it's the military one.
Oh, snap.
And I was exhibiting my flight simulators and arcade systems at both.
Oh.
Right. And it was a lot of fun. IAPA is legit. I mean, you go there and you can play the latest simulator systems, the latest arcade games. And in the back, all the companies bring in their rides.
Oh, man.
You get
oh,
in those
man.
rides and you're getting thrown around and all you're thinking is German engineering, because it's throwing you all over the place. But yeah, that's a great show. You should go if you wanted to go
IAPA,
to E3.
huh?
You definitely need to go to IAPA. Yeah.
Okay.
That's an awesome show.
Yeah, there's my wife and I, we've been putting off we're going to go to Japan next year. And we're going to go because we know that there's going to be like a ton of business. There's like a business expo going
Soon
on
is
for the
time
whole
to go
year.
because their economy is tanking right now.
Is it?
Yeah. So right now you get a lot of yen to the dollar.
Ooh, that is a great tip. I hope. Well, okay. I don't even know how to say this, but I hope we can go before things get pricey again. I don't want to say that I hope that it stays as it is,
we don't wish any harm on them. But, I mean, take advantage of opportunities where they come. So.
Definitely.
Did I answer your question, though?
You did.
Sorry, it was kind of long-winded. I don't know. That's the end of the podcast.
We'll see you guys next time.
Yeah.
So at what point did you make your way down to Orlando?
So in 1986, I exited from my first company, which I was lucky. And then bounced around a few different things. And
this was a company you owned, or?
Yeah, I owned.
Okay.
And then I was bouncing around on different things and, gaining more experience and more, good experience. And then decided if I'm going to beat my head against the wall, I might as well open it and put something in it. So I applied to the top 10 MBA schools in the country, and then I picked 5 others just to be on the safe side. And 3 months later, I was in a quandary because I got accepted to them all, and I'm like, "Oh,
oh
wow!" Now, I was expecting to get accepted to 2 or 3,
Yeah.
and then I just only have 2 or 3 to choose from. So I'm like, "Dang!" So now everybody was like clapping me on the back, going, "Oh my gosh!" And I'm like, "No, it's more of a pain now."
Right.
But in any case, so I started doing my due diligence on all the schools and everything. And I'm not, when I went to Michigan State, and I was like, I wasn't a Greek person, It's like, I'm not a status quo person. Never have been and never will be.
Yeah.
Proudly, right? And so I didn't want to go to Harvard or Yale or Columbia or any of those schools, but I thought it would be cool if I got accepted to one of them that would offer me a decent choice. But then, so. Then I found out about Rollins, and I'm reading about Rollins, and I'm like, why would I go to Harvard or Yale to get a Harvard or Yale education when I can go to Rollins and get a Harvard, Yale, Columbia, Wharton, Rutgers,
all that?
Wharton, McGinnis, Stanford and whatnot education? Because all those professors, once they get tenure at those schools or their pension or whatever, then they move down to Florida, and then they start teaching at Rollins.
When they're the most wise.
And then they offered me a 50% scholarship because of my business experience.
Oh, snap.
And so I was like, bye, Mom. So I packed up the truck and moved to Beverly,
Man.
So, came down here in 86, and I went to school full time, and I worked full time. My first year, I was a partner in an international publishing company.
Yeah.
Nothing really big. We just had projects all around. And after a year, we parted amicably. And then one of my customers from a business that I was in Detroit had moved down here, and I called him up and said, "I'm looking for work. You know anything?" He says, "Do you know anything about project management?" And I'm an entrepreneur, I'll jump off a cliff and and build a plane on the way down, So I'm like, yeah, sure. Interviewed with him, and he was like, well, yeah, you know a hell of a lot about this project management. I didn't even know, but see, with ADHD, I felt like I had to develop coping mechanisms because if I didn't plan something, I wasn't going to get it done.
Yeah.
Because it helped me because we have problems with execution. We have an execution dysfunction. So those of you who I didn't follow up with in the last year, please forgive me for that. But it wasn't my fault. No. But in any case, so I became a good planner, and then so when I met with the VP of the plant, he was like, "Yeah, but we don't have any openings." And I'm like, "Well, just hire me as a consultant. I mean, you don't have to pay benefits or anything like that. Let's just agree on a price and then, put me to work." And so he put me to work with my friend, and then 2.5 months later, he came in, he's like, "Stop what you're doing." And I was like, "Oh, shit, I got fired already." And then I said, what's going on? And he says, 3.5 months ago, he was 9 months behind schedule. And I'm like, okay. And he says, now the entire plant is 1 month behind schedule. And I'm like, oh.
Wow.
And he says, what am I going to do? I can't pay you to sit on your ass for 2.5 months. And I said, I tell you what you're going to do. And he says, what? I said, you're going to pay me to sit on my ass for a week. And when I come back from my paid vacation, give me a list. And that 6-month contract turned into just under 3 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And I was just doing project after project for them and doing DARPA projects and other type, cool stuff. And yeah. But mostly working on improving the processes of the way they did things. Like their CF Lads finance department had no computers.
Oh, snap.
And the engineers are drawing things with pencil and paper on these big boards, right? And then when they get done, they hold it up, and then these interns their job was they're all wearing khaki pants and short sleeve shirts with ties, and they're all literally running throughout. And this room is so vast, you could probably you have a hard time seeing the end of it.
Wow.
And they're literally running all around the room, grabbing these things and taking them to the finance department.
Jeez.
And then the finance department opens them up, and then by the way, so when they get it to the finance department, they unroll it and they fold it up into till it's 8.5 by 11, and then they put it on the top of the stack.
Oh, man.
And the guys in the finance department are taking these off. So the stuff at the bottom of the stack's been there for a year or 9 months, right?
Yikes.
And so I went in there and I computerized their whole system and way of doing things, and took the typical, part design from a 47-minute, or I think it was 53-minute, exercise down to a 7-minute exercise.
Man, that's crazy.
That's just an example, but yeah, it was kind of cool. And then after that, went and worked for a property management company for a few years. I was also a consultant, but then they made me an offer I couldn't refuse.
Really?
Yeah, so I was like, okay, I'll stick around. And then after that, I started another business. I designed and built this consumer electronics item, and I was but then that was my first failure, and it was like, I mean, it was a holder for remote controls. Because at the time, you had a remote control for your TV, one for your VCR, one for your CD player, one for your, this and that and so forth. And the average home had 7 of these things.
Wow.
And so I designed a thing that holds 2 of them, and it sits easily on the couch, and it's cradle it in your hand, no problem. You can walk around without even thinking. And if you lose it, you clap your hands and it goes beep, 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 so you can find it.
Oh man.
Right? And so I designed the printed circuit boards and designed the injection tooling and all that stuff, and the fulfillment and the marketing and all that. And I was one of Kevin Harrington's first customers.
Oh wow.
You know, because when he first started his infomercial company.
Yeah.
Right? And so did a test. The test was great. You know, and we're like, holy cow, you know, this thing's a gold mine, you know. And then September of '92 was the big recession hit. And that was the biggest one since 1929 at the time.
Man.
And, you know, my investor said, that last 50 grand ain't coming. And I was living in a $400 a month apartment.
Yeah.
I had no income for 2 years. I was $250,000 in debt, you know, and I was, you know, I was still in my 20s.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, dang.
Man.
So, but then so at the time I was running the Central Florida Council for High Technology.
Mm-hmm.
And by the time I started Simulation Entertainment Group in '95, we had 6,000 members. I took it from like maybe 200 members to like 6,000. It was great. And then I was also running the Florida Venture Group, which was we were holding events every month for investors and things like that. And so all my friends, you know, it was like a bad breakup, you know. I'm in PTSD mode, and I'm just like in shock. I'm just like wondering around, what the hell am I going to do with my life now?
Mm-hmm.
And then my friends were all like, well, hey, you came up with an idea, you patented it, you wrote a business plan, you raised $500,000, you've designed and fabricated, you know, thousands of these things, did the marketing and all that. And I'm thinking to myself, when they're saying that, yeah, that and $10 gets me, or $5 gets me a cup of coffee. And they said, well, can you do that for us? And I'm like, I mean, how much you pay me, right? And so they came up with a price, and I started my virtual entrepreneur consulting practice. And so it's been 30-something years now that I've been doing that. And through that, gosh, man, the projects I've worked on, you wouldn't believe. I mean, we're talking stuff that people still don't know about yet.
Really?
Yeah. And
you want to give an exclusive to the Inspire Challenge? Are you under NDA?
when you're in a steel room in the Pentagon and you're in a chair and the NDA is this thick, and they're like, you ain't leaving until you're signing it. I'm like, you know.
Oh man!
But yeah, it was you know, worked on some pretty cool stuff, and then of course I've worked with thousands and thousands of startups, founders, and entrepreneurs, and so forth, and small businesses, but then helped design all kinds of really cool stuff. So yeah,
man, there's so much that I want to peel some layers in on here, and it starts with the
keep your hands to yourself.
So you mentioned that, like, being ADHD, you had to set things up, plan it out, because if you didn't, then you would just never execute on that.
It helped me execute because once I had a plan.
Yeah.
See, what people don't understand are plans remove your risks, right? And people who are starting businesses, for example, don't have any clue what the hell risk is about. Right? Oh, I'm going to mitigate this and I'm going to mitigate that. And I'm like, you want to mitigate your opportunities? And I'm like, what do you mean? Well, opportunities are risks too. And you want to mitigate them? You know, because people don't understand risk.
Yeah.
And so what plans do is plans eliminate risks, right? So if you're getting into a business and you don't know what the risks are, then those risks are going to happen to you, right? But if you have a plan in place, that you can plan to not even have that risk at all. Okay? So, for example, one of the biggest reason, not cause, but reason why companies fail is there's no market for the product or service. So if you have a good plan, then you have the processes in place to prove that there's a market for the product or service.
Yeah.
So then that biggest risk, that 42% risk, disappears, right? But you have to do the work. You have to do the homework. It's like, who was it? I think it was Edison who said that opportunity is often dressed in overalls and looks like work, right? And so people don't understand that. And I tell people, it's like for every hour you spend planning your success, you eliminate at least 100 to 500 hours of pain just in each year for the next, as long as you own the business.
So that is something so good. So I want to know, like, when it came to your process of planning and coming up with scenarios to account for and to plan out of, what did that process look like for you?
Well, I've been blessed with the opportunity to have participated in many different projects and many different things. So I got to see things from many different points of view. And my ADHD brain is starting to, connect dots that other people can't connect,
right?
Because they don't see those paths. It's like the mycelium network and Discover, right? And it's like I see things and I always ask questions. That's another big problem with entrepreneurs and startup founders, and the cause of why they fail is that they don't self-educate. They don't ask questions. They think they're going to listen to some podcasts, from whoever, and watch some YouTube videos, and now they're an expert. And I'm like, you ain't shit. It's like it's not going to happen, right? Good luck with that. And because they don't understand the risks, right? And I can't tell you how many divorces I've seen, how many losing kids custody I've seen, how many bankruptcies I've seen, how many people losing their homes I've seen. And I've had 3 people that I knew that committed suicide. Man. And it's like, you don't understand what you're getting yourself into, right? And the best way to understand that is to plan your success. Okay? And that plan is a holistic thing, and it's not written in stone. See, I know hello, AD. I lost my train of thought. Also AD. So it's a very holistic type of thing, right? So what people don't understand is everybody's like, one of the biggest group things is everybody's so product focused. It's the product. It's the product. It's the product. And if it's the product, then you focus on whatever processes there are just to focus on the product, but it fails because nobody wants the product. Yeah. Right? Or it sucks. It's like Rovio, right? Created Angry Birds. So I had several people from Rovio on my team, including one of the previous producers. And we're sitting there having a beer one day, and
quick question. I wrote it down so we can come back to it. Real quick question. When you do talk about these things as far as planning things out, do you have like a certain allotted amount of time where you're like, I'm not going to go over 45 minutes of planning because then I'll just overexert myself? No, there is I remember what I was going to say. So to answer your question, I set a schedule for a project. And I'm starting a business as a project. Yeah. Okay. I set a. Let me. Is that a beeper?
It's my.
Oh snap! That's like a SOS code, right?
It's my thank you. my daily thank you, 5:15 p.m. But in any case, the damn it.
Setting a schedule for planning.
Okay. So starting a business or anything else is a project. Getting dressed in the morning is a project, right? And so what I do is I set a timeline for it, and I say the first 20% of that schedule I'm going to plan. I'm not going to start working on anything. I'm just going to plan.
Wow.
Right. And at the end of that 20%, regardless of the status of that plan, now it's time to get shit done.
Yeah.
Right. So now I start working the plan, executing the plan. Now, the plan doesn't necessarily have to be done, but the beauty of a good plan is that it's flexible. Right. And see, the thing is people judge planning, management, and driving based on their own incompetency. Okay. If they see a fast driver, gee, I wonder who that is, driving, through traffic, then they're going to say, oh, that guy's being an ass, right? But they don't realize that person's not cutting anybody off. He's using his turn signals religiously. She's not tailgating people and so not causing a problem or anything else like that. So how bad is that person really driving?
Yeah.
Right? It's the same thing for management and planning. One time I was at the Game Developers Conference. They had a leadership forum in 2009 in San Francisco, and I'm sitting at this round table with about a dozen other people, and these are the people that were the producers, for Call of Duty,
Oh, wow.
PUBG, Overwatch,
Holy smokes.
Legend of Zelda, and whatnot.
True
right?
legends of
So
the
we've
industry.
got billions of dollars,
Yeah.
billions of dollars sitting at the table, right? And we're going around introducing ourselves. Excuse me. And so my name is Rupert Meghnot, and I teach project management for the Game Design Master's degree at Full Sail. And everybody groans. Ugh. And I'm like, WTF, what are you groaning for? And they said, oh, we hate project management. I said, what do you mean you hate project? Why on earth do you hate project management? You've got a budget of $300 million for your game. Why do you hate it? And they said because it stifles creativity and initiative. And then it just my head exploded. I was like, dude, do you realize that for the last 30 years I've been using project management to maximize creativity and initiative? And everybody's like, what? So then I came out in one of my last Orlandopreneurs, I think it was 2 months ago. I told people this story, and I explained, and I proved in 10 minutes, actually less than that, how processes optimize and maximize creativity and initiative. And everybody's like, holy cow, man, And so...
I think that's what I want to ask a quick question about, right? Because so this part right here that you mentioned, so for... let's say your average entrepreneur or your average young adult person coming into figuring out their thing. They know that they have, let's say, 10 to 12 hours of sunlight that they're going to be doing something. So you're saying of that 12 hours,
No.
No?
I'm saying if you're trying to start a business, that's a process that's going to take several months. Okay. So let's say you give yourself a timeline of 3 months. Okay. So I'm saying that out of those 15 weeks or 14 weeks, you're going to set aside 2.5 of those weeks, right? Or 2.5 of those weeks planning.
Okay, so this is not something that is done on a day-to-day basis. This is something that you do
on a day-to-day basis.
Okay.
But that's all you're doing.
Yeah.
For that 2.5 weeks is you're planning.
Okay.
You're doing your research. You're doing your homework. You're doing your due diligence. You're asking questions. You're calling Rupert Meghnots up, and you're talking to other people. You're listening to the podcasts and everything else like that. But you're focusing. You're asking questions, and you're focusing on the answers to those questions.
Yeah.
And then at the end of that, 2.5 weeks, then you hit the ground and say, okay, I'm going to go get my EIN. I'm going to file at Sunbiz. I'm going to actually do that first. And then, I'm going to make these phone calls, and I'm going to set up the bank account, and I'm going to do this and that, and so on and so forth. And in the meantime, you're also talking to your stakeholders. Like if you're married, that stakeholder needs to be on board 150%, right? Because the risks that you're taking affect them as well, right? And then you hit the ground running, and then you go and you follow the plan. And the thing is you don't know everything. I certainly don't know everything, and so things happen. And so a good plan allows you to be flexible, right? So you say, well, it's going to take longer than I expected. It's not going to take 3 months. It's going to take 6 months. And then you sit there and say, oh, do I have the time to do that? Do I have the budget to do that? Right? And if you do, then you just say, bing, I'm going to make it a 6-month project, right? And then in the meantime, you're updating your plan with all the new information that you're getting. You're updating your plan. So once a week, I usually spend, at like noon on Fridays, I like to sit down with the plan and say, what did I learn this week? And then update the plan based on that.
Okay.
So then that way, everybody who's coming into the business, they're literally on the same page with you. Because they can just go to that plan and say, oh. So if they did something last week and they screwed it up, they can go in the plan this week and see how it was fixed and go, and then not make that mistake again.
Okay,
Right.
got it. And I thought that was something that really stuck to me because I was watching something the other day, and the person has their like meetings built out into like 15-minute segments, and they're like, "How do you even have a meeting in 15 minutes?" And he's like, "Okay, look, I schedule it for 15 minutes, but I truly understand we're going to spend the first 5 minutes putzing around, introducing names, doing pleasantries. That's going to be 15 minutes right there. And then we have 15 minutes to actually handle business. So I schedule my day with that urgency in mind,
Right.
with built-in fluff time.
Right.
That way I don't truly go over what I can allot to that type of meeting."
Yeah, we don't have 2 15-minute meetings within a half an hour of each other.
Yeah. Okay. Love it. And you were talking about how you were in the room with people like Call of Duty and like all those people in there.
Yeah.
So the plan is like the huge element for you. And like, so where did that skill set come from? Because I have learned that planning is something that if you know how to do it, that can be half the battle versus if you're just like
It's
shooting
more
off
than
the
half
hip.
battle. Yeah.
Yeah, if you're shooting off the hip with pure talent, it's like it'll take you XYZ steps, but
If you're successful, you're just lucky. That's all there is to it. You're just lucky, So I was going to tell you about Angry Birds.
yes.
Right? So do you know how many games Rovio made that failed before they hit it with Angry Birds?
I remember hearing it was a lot. Like it was. This is probably an exaggeration, but I think it was something. Was it over 30 games?
It was 71 games. 71.
That's
Every time I even say that, it blows my mind. It's like, didn't you get the message after the 5th game? Right? What's the common denominator here? It's you guys, right? It's us, right? And because they were focused on the product and not the process to make the product. Okay? If they focused on the process, like Burnout Game Ventures, for example, okay? So when I first, so on the first, what was I going to say? So,
Burnout Game Ventures?
yeah, I'm trying to back up it's too quiet in here. So Burnout Game Ventures,
Play some
so
music.
the industry. Okay. So when I introduced BGV to the world at the Game Developers Conference in 2015, nobody in the industry even knew what revenue share was. Never even heard of it before. And within 5 years, pretty much every publisher in the world was using revenue share.
Wow.
Okay. So I did my part. Now, but I went further than that. The typical independent game, indie game, they're just, there's millions of them. You go on Google Play or the App Store or whatever, there's millions of them. Right?
Yeah.
But they typically take 2 to 4 years to make. And about 750,000, $750,000 in resources.
Jeez.
Right? Time and money or finance or whatever. And then they typically only generate maybe less than 22,000 installations in a 5-year life cycle. So they don't make money.
Yeah.
Right. So we did 4 different games, 4 different companies, 4 different genres, different platforms, and our games were done in 6 months on average. Generated 100,000 installs in the first year for 10% of the cost.
What?
Because we focused on the process of making the great products.
Wow.
Right? And so that's what you do.
Mm-hmm.
If you focus on the process to make great products, then you know when you make the product that it's going to sell.
Yeah.
Because you've built it by asking people what they wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And you build exactly what they want. And then when you put it out there, they're like, I've been looking for this forever. I'll take that.
So how does that work as far as you going out and asking the people what they want? What would be like a way to do that exactly?
So there's a thing in town called Startup Weekend, and actually it's all over the world. One of the teams I manage actually won the global startup weekend. So, but in any case,
Still killing it.
So you spend a weekend. You start on a Friday afternoon, and you work. Originally, we were just working straight from Friday afternoon till Sunday evening, straight.
Wow.
Right. And you come up with, everybody comes up with an idea for a new business, whether it's something they've already been working on or not is not relevant. And they pitch it to everybody else, and then everybody picks the top like 10, and then they all form teams, and then they go at it, right? They build a business in the next, 36 hours. And then at some point in time, like Saturday afternoon, usually, preferably before noon, you got to go out on the street, and you have to interview. You and your team need to interview. My goal is always 100 people
In that specific amount of time.
Yeah.
What was the time frame for it?
Well, however long it takes, but hopefully it's not going to take more than a couple hours. To
Yeah.
100 people. Have 5 people interview 20 people each. Just go to Lake Eola. Right, just run over the Lake Eola. Sometimes it was pouring rain. It was monsoon season and everything, and it's like, oh my gosh! But they still did it, And then they come back, and then they do their pitch and everything, and put it all together, their presentation together, and then at the end, and then Sunday afternoon they present their idea and their and the pitch and how they validate it and everything else, and then some judges pick whoever. It is, and then, you win Orlando, right? And quite a few of those teams have actually gone on to do great things, like Lease Cake, for example. So you mentioned 1 Million Cups earlier. So 1 Million Cups is an organization created by the Kauffman Foundation, which is the leading entrepreneurial organization in the world. At one point, they were funding 400 venture capital firms.
Holy smokes.
So we're talking billions of dollars a year. And so this 1 Million Cups, what I liken it to an education program. So every Wednesday morning, we have 2 entrepreneurs come in and educate our audience, anywhere from 30 to 75 people. They educate our audience for 6 minutes on their business idea. And then the audience educates them for 15 to 20 minutes. You get invaluable feedback from people. The mentors and the people like myself with so much experience in entrepreneurship are there, and they're offering free advice and answering your questions for you. And it's all free parking, free donuts, free coffee, And it's fantastic, and there's 108 communities around the country. So if you're listening from Spokane or from wherever, go to 1millioncups.com and search for your city, and then go. So the beautiful thing about it is that pre-COVID there were 185.
Oh wow!
But even now, can you imagine? So people starting at 7 a.m. on Wednesday morning in New York or Maine, and then until 10 a.m. in Los Angeles or San Francisco or even Alaska, you've got a literal wave of entrepreneurial energy that sweeps the country every Wednesday morning. And it's pretty badass.
That is,
And the one here in Orlando has spawned, two unicorns first presented at Orlando, 6 Shark Tank appearances first presented at Orlando's 1 million cups, and we've had 2 Techstars Startup Weekend Global winners. Yeah.
Hot dog. So you guys that are local to Orlando, get plugged into these local entrepreneur opportunities. Man.
Yeah. It's a good thing.
It's a fantastic thing.
Yeah.
What would you say to like somebody who is watching and they're interested in coming, but they feel intimidated as if they may not either be ready for that type of thing, or they might not feel like they have enough of a plan going on already?
No guts, no glory. Like Nike says, just do it. There's no judgment. We don't care. We get people like that all the time, right? But we're there to help you, right? We're there to help you. So if you come to my Orlandopreneur events or to the 1 Million Cups events, our arms are open. We have no judgment, right? We don't care what color you are. We don't care what gender you are. We don't care, where you're from or what idea you have. Come to us, and we're going to give you honest answers to your questions, 100%. So don't let your lack of self-esteem hinder you from greatness.
You brought up the case with Rovio. And Angry Birds and 70 plus failed games. I mean, that is a level of failure that I don't think anyone in 2024 has enough self-esteem to move past.
I still don't have. But they got lucky with number 72.
Yeah.
Right? So if I'm an investor in Rovio, right? The first thing I'm going to say 2 things. First thing, thank you. I gave you 1 and you gave me 6. I'm a happy camper, right? The second thing I'm going to say is let's do it again.
Yeah.
The problem is here we are 16 years later, and you go to their website, you can pull it up now, and all you're going to see is Angry Birds. There might be 12 different Angry Birds, games and movies and everything else, but it's still just Angry Birds.
Yeah.
They didn't have the processes to replicate that success with another IP. That's what planning does, right? So my exits are in political consulting.
Political consulting.
Campaigns and things like that.
Really?
That was my first one. The second one was restaurant, right? Third one was the flight simulators, and now the gaming, right?
Wow. Talk about a spectrum there.
So, because I focus on the process.
Yeah.
And the process works for everyone, right? Yeah, you mold it, right? The process is basically like a giant piece of Play-Doh, right? And you just give it to somebody, and that's what they start with. But then they mold it, right? But if they didn't have the Play-Doh, they wouldn't be able to mold anything, right?
Okay.
They might use other substances, but that's not the point, right? So that's what it does, and the current success rate for startups in the world is 5%. Yeah. Right. Which is I went to failery.com and on a whim a couple years ago, and I just looked at the companies that have raised $100 million or more that still failed in the previous 2 years. And I added up $30 billion. So if you go down to $10 million threshold, it's going to be exponentially greater than that.
Wow.
And then you go down to the $1 million threshold, and this is going to be exponentially greater than that. So we're wasting trillions, and I mean trillions of dollars, right, every year on failed startups, right? And so I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute. I look out the window and I see rockets going up literally every day, right? I see electric cars that are finally, after 120 years, finally getting their act together and driving around town because they were the first vehicles. And then I look at computers and I look at cameras and, I look at all these things and I'm like, wow, this is an amazing world. This is amazing. But the thing is like even in this room, the the clothes we're wearing, the computers, the equipment, the paint on the walls, the fan, everything that we see, feel, and touch was created by a company that was once a startup. Everything. Everything. Every company you invest in on the stock market, every company you invest in NASDAQ, every company, right, was once a startup. So what do you think's going to happen if we double the rate at which they succeed? It's still a 90% failure rate, but we double the rate from 5% to 10%.
Man.
We're literally going to double the wealth in the world. Okay. The thing is hopefully we're going to learn from the first half, and we're going to say, we're not going to focus on letting rich people get richer.
Yeah.
Right. We're going to focus on making everyone wealthy. Right. And so, you know, I mean, I turned down, you know, an investment from 3 investors because I told them, I said, I'm not interested in turning 3 millionaires into billionaires. I want to create 1,000 millionaires.
Yeah. So, okay. So I think I'm beginning to be able to see the difference between consider me a proxy for the audience here.
Sure.
Okay, so a person who, let's say they start a business,
Right.
comparatively to Rovio, where they fail 70 times and then they finally get it right on that last time.
Sure.
And the issue of why they didn't branch out beyond Angry Birds was
Right.
because the process wasn't there.
Correct.
The person that goes and starts something, arguably, if that person did it not just purely off of passion, not purely just off of talent, but they did it off of a plan as well, in addition to those other things,
Then their chances of success are exponentially greater.
is there a point that that person who does that knows that it's time to make a significant pivot, exit, or
Of course. That's part of the flexible plan. Right. So like you go out on the street and you're trying to validate your idea, and you're going to customers, or you're doing polls or surveys and things like that, and you get 1,000 responses, and you know their responses are basically telling you that this is not the product they want. This is the product they want. And then you pivot. The beautiful thing about a plan is that a good plan offers a good foundation upon which you can pivot an unlimited number of times. Right. And still survive. Right. So it reminds me of my favorite quote. So my favorite quote is from a guy by the name of Sir John Havery Jones. And he said, planning is an unnatural act. We would all much rather do something else. And he said, the wonderful thing about not planning is that failure comes as a complete surprise. Whereas the alternative, planning, is usually preceded by a period of, you know, worry and despair. And then he says, fail to plan, plan to fail. And when I first saw that quote, I'm like, wait a minute. If you've got time to worry and despair, you have time to not fail.
Yeah.
You can pivot. You can do whatever you need to do to keep your company alive. So at the very least, that is what a plan does. It allows you to survive. Okay. And, you know, so.
Man, that's so good there. So a built-in pivot. So would that look like maybe taking some of the skills and using those skills in some what is a tangible plan that maybe you've seen firsthand where a person wanted to do something, and after doing either market research or whatever, they realize, oh, the base idea, well, the full plan will not work because the market research doesn't agree with it. And now we have to pivot. Do you have an example of that you can think of?
Oh, gosh. Well, automotive makers do that constantly. Constantly, right? So So Cadillac, for example.
Okay.
And so General Motors is notorious for taking years to perfect a car and then killing it. Right? Just when the audio enthusiasts like myself finally look at the Fiero and say, I want one of those, or look at the Cadillac, I want one of those, or whatever, or the Camaro, I want one, then they kill it. But they still go through that process of making a great vehicle, right? And so they do a lot of pivoting, even if it, like the Camaro, when they did the reboot, right? It was a hit because it looked cool and everything else like that. Plus, Transformers help push it and so forth. And it was a good car, right? But it wasn't great. So what they did over years of customer feedback and everything else is you iterate, right? You fine tune all the little things here and there, the suspension system and the the motor and the gas mileage and the handling and everything else. You adjust those things as you go along. Of course, they have the resources to do that. A startup, most startups don't.
Yeah.
But that's why planning is so much more important, because your resources are limited, and then once you're done with them, you're done. Right.
Yeah. Which brings up the question of, what are your thoughts when it comes to whether it's taking out lines of credit, venture capitalist investments, and a startup looking into those lines? Are you of the line of, if you can't produce it, then don't ask for it? Or do you think it's worth the risk and the gamble there?
So I have a methodology that is proprietary that I use to determine whether or not I'm going to invest time or money into a project. And I'm going to be incorporating that with Orlandopreneur. I did it for Burnout Game Ventures, and now I'm going to do it for Orlandopreneur. Having said that, yes, there's everybody has a process, but when 75% of venture capital deals fail, their process is not that good. And when 42% of those fail because there's no market for their product and service, don't be thinking you're smart just because you have money, because it's proven that that's not the case. There's always outliers. I have friends of mine that started a private equity firm, and they just invested in 9 companies, and all 9 companies exited. Right?
Oh, wow.
Because they had a process.
Wow.
They had a process, and so on and so forth, and I learned from them too. And so, they were successful. They had a 100% success rate.
That's crazy.
So the thing is with Orlandopreneur, I had to look back. So like when I mentioned earlier about reasons for failure. So CB Insights and other companies and people will do their lists. So these are the reasons why companies fail. But what people don't understand is a reason is not a cause. Okay. So when I see these reasons, no market for their product or service, poor customer service, poor product, get out competed, run out of cash or whatever. When I'm looking at these things, I'm thinking these are not causes for failure. These are symptoms of failure. Because there's literally, whenever a business fails, there's only one cause. Always has been and always will be one cause. And that's us. The leadership of the company. Okay. And as an entrepreneur, that's you. That's me. Right? If my company fails, I'm the one to blame. Period. End of story. Right? Because I didn't handle all those reasons, which are risks. I didn't handle them or manage them appropriately.
Yeah.
And then I failed. That's life. Right? And hopefully you learn from that and not make the same mistakes twice. But most people don't even learn.
Yep.
Rovio being one of them. I got tons of respect for you guys at Rovio, by the way. What's up, guys? But in any case, it's right. So,
another question that I had written down was, when you had mentioned that you had grown one of your membership things to you had grown something to a membership of 6,000 people.
Yeah, it was crazy.
That is inconceivable. Like
We were having fun. We were having fun. I've done that several times.
What does that look like? How do you go about getting to a number that grand and large? How did you
Orlando
go about
Preneur is
that?
16 months old, and we've already got 2,200 members.
How'd you do that?
You know, and our events average 150 to 200 plus people per month.
Yeah,
you know, per
that's
event.
crazy.
You know, so in fact, right now, I don't know as we speak because it's gone up, but the last I looked, it was 222 RSVPs.
Jeez.
So if you're in Orlando, or even if you're anywhere within an hour and a half drive, come out to the Citrus Club Monday night.
Yeah, man.
Yeah,
It's worth the
gonna be
time.
lit. It's gonna be fun. We're celebrating women entrepreneurs, womenpreneurs.
Hey,
So if you're
yo.
a woman with a small business or a startup, you need to get there because I'll introduce you to some people that will blow your mind and help you.
Man.
But in any case, to answer your question, it's the process.
Mm.
It's the process. There was an organ. It's the process. I didn't speak in the mic there. But in any case, so what was it, '89 when I started working at Martin, I was working at the property management company, and I met a woman, and we moved in together and blah blah blah, and then she introduced me to this thing called New Directions, and New Directions was a singles group for the American Cancer Society. And so what we did, what they were doing is, you know, so we went to an event, and it was at the bar at the Holiday Inn in Altamont Springs.
Okay.
I think it was called the Why Not Lounge or something like that. And we get there, we pay $5 at the door, we walk in, we get a drink ticket, we walk in, and there's 15 people there. So I couldn't sit still. So I approached the board and I said, hey, you mind if I offer some suggestions? And they said, sure. So I offered some suggestions, and then, you know, within 2 months they were at 35 people. You know, and then they were like, you got any more suggestions? And I said, well, let me do a big event for you. So a friend of mine was on the team that built the second half of the more modern half of Fashion Square Mall.
Okay.
And they hadn't opened it up to the public yet. And I said, I wanted to do an event, and I'm looking for a location. And do you know of any? And he goes, have it right there. We'll open it up to you. So we got the whole brand. And back then, that was a big thing in Orlando. That was the biggest thing to happen in Orlando that year. And so we had it all to ourselves. And I said, what am I going to do? And so I did a creative black tie party. So you could wear anything you want. Okay, remember, this is the early 90s, right? So you could wear anything you want.
Oh, my goodness.
Anything you want, as long as you had a black tie.
Oh, snap.
Oh, my goodness.
Man.
And I got chefs from the top 8 restaurants in town, and they all showed up, and they were cooking food and making it right there. I had Shaquille and a bunch of different Orlando and Tiger Woods, and everybody else was donating things for a silent auction.
What?
And we had over 800 people showed up, you know, at $35 a pop or $60 a couple. And the next thing you know, within 2 years, there was only one place in town that we could meet up once a month, and that was the Plantation in Apopka, because 900 people were showing up every month.
Jeez.
It was crazy.
That's so insane.
That was a lot of fun.
But so in order to put together things that have the ability to have this kind of extra pop factor and wow factor, it takes, I would imagine, a little bit more on the resource department.
We didn't have any resources at the at the Cancer Society. It was all volunteer. We're all volunteers, you know. So everything that we had to get that cost money, we had to find sponsors for, you know, usually in-kind sponsors. And the same thing for Orlandopreneur. So I find sponsors to give me the funding that I need to buy the first drink for everybody. You know, that's what I do, by the way. Hey, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And so you come there. It's free to join the club, the group now. We do have plans to offer a subscription, and you come in and you RSVP on meetup.com/Orlandopreneur, and then I know how many drink tickets I'm gonna have to be on the line for. But it pays for those, and it pays for the venue sometimes, and it pays for supplies and whatever else. And we're profitable. We've been profitable since day one. But I hate. Oh man, I hate going after sponsors. So if any of you are,
I can imagine.
if any of you is a whiz and shit hot when it comes to raising sponsorships and doing business development, please call me. Please call me. But in any case, yeah, and every month we have hundreds of people that show up, and it's a lot of fun. And one thing that we do is that every event we have has to have a learning component. And so going back to the causes of why we fail. So entrepreneurs, we're the cause of our failure. But then I have to look into that and says, well, what's the cause of that? Right? And the three causes is, number one, we don't have the right mindset. Okay. Oh, I want to change the world, but I'm only going to work 30 hours a week to do it. Yeah, good luck with that. Okay. That's just an example. There's many other examples. But then the lack of mindset means that you don't ask the right questions or enough questions, or don't do your due diligence or plan. And then that leads to insufficient planning. So those three things contribute, I would say 90% to people's failure, that they don't do those things.
Yeah.
Okay.
So real quick, you said mindset.
The right mindset, self-education. And I'm sorry, TikTok videos don't cut it. And sufficient planning. So again, back to what I was saying earlier about planning, management, and driving. It's like, you talk to anybody, and everybody hates planning, and everybody hates managers, right? Because they're only able to base that judgment on their own experience. And if your experience is of people who have their heads up their ass when it comes to planning or managing or driving, then that's all you can judge people by, because you don't know any better, right? So the thing is you be that person that learns how to manage well and to drive well or to plan well and all that, and you will go far.
Man,
you will go far.
Yeah. That's gotta be such a. I mean, and your career path shows it, that like people were in hot desire for someone that could actually step up to the plate with the plan and be able to show out results and whatnot.
You got to watch out too, though, because everybody's got fragile egos, and especially in Orlando, and it's like they don't like it when somebody comes along with new ideas, and because everybody's got not invented here syndrome, right? If we didn't invent it, then it's no good, right? Or we're not going to adopt it. But then if everybody else is a threat, and I'm like, seriously. So I might be the founder of Orlandopreneur, but my title is Chief Collaboration Officer. Okay, and that's my job. My job is to go to the other 300 plus entrepreneurial and business service organizations in Orlando that have open doors and open arms, but they're nonprofits. Hence, every time I meet an entrepreneur, have you been to 1 Million Cups? What's that? Have you been to NAWBO? What's that? Have you been to Small Business Development Center? What's that? They don't have marketing budgets.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I need to attack these three problems why entrepreneurs fail, right? Not at the right mindset, not asking the right questions, or self-educating, and not planning sufficiently. So the best way to do it is to help all these other 300 and send people their way. So 40% of our marketing budget is exactly that, to help market these nonprofits into people coming through their doors. Okay. And we really haven't even started that yet. I mean, we've been doing it all along, because at our every event, I don't know if you've been, but we have a slide that says upcoming events, and that's everybody else's events coming up, right? Go to this event, go to Startup Weekend, go to, the NAWBO board induction ceremony, go to whatever, right? And yeah, so because I tell people, I say, look, this town, I think it's just universal. Everybody uses the word hub.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah. Yep.
We're a hub of this. We're a hub of that. And so I'm an auto enthusiast, right? I love cars, and I know what a hub is. Okay, you jack up a car, the back of a car up, and you take the rear wheels off on a rear wheel drive car, and you gun it, and that thing will make some noise depending on the vehicle, and the hub will spin. But that's all it does. It just spins. Doesn't do anything else. Just spins, right? But when you have these hubs in a city or whatever, in a startup ecosystem or a tech ecosystem, there's a lot of overlap. If you got a hub and you introduce collaboration, true collaboration, people talk about innovation and collaboration, they don't know what the hell they're talking about. When you bring in true collaboration, then you're putting teeth on those hubs. And when you put teeth on a hub, now you have a gear. And when you put two gears together, you now have a machine.
Yeah.
And so that's why our slogan is creating startup machines. Because our mission is to transform Orlando's startup ecosystem into a machine that other cities in the world will want to emulate.
Man. So, okay, that's what these hubs act to do here. Now, where does a person know? Because similar into going to these types of events here or listening to certain audio books or listening to podcasts, things like that, where does a person know, okay, it's time to go from the learning, gathering information aspect? Where do they know that their plan is now sufficient? Okay, it's time to execute and it's time to run with it.
That comes from experience, right? But like I said, I'm somebody who made a living off of planning for other people for a long time, right? Right. I've been involved in plans, at NASA, their work breakdown structure for something they weren't even making was 20,000 items long, right? 20,000 steps. They weren't even making it. They were just testing it.
Wow.
And so that was sufficient for them. When I was at Full Sail, the night before one of my the final exam and the project was due, one of my students called me up and said, "Professor," he says, "what's the shortest project management plan you've ever seen?" And I said, 1 page. He was like, he was dumbfounded. He was like, 1 page? I said, yeah. For that team with that culture and with processes they already knew and developed before that they all knew by heart, and they worked together. The only thing they needed for a project management plan was, what's the goal? What are the requirements? What are the resources they have available? What's the schedule that they're going to do? What determines the quality? Have a nice day. That's it. And so you know what they did? And I probably have that picture, but what they did is they took their 174-page project management plan. Now, understand, this is something the whole class did as a team in 1 month. And they developed this 174-page plan, and they stapled all the pages together into one sheet. And then they got two, bread rollers or dough rollers, and they made a scroll out of it, right? And so they presented it to me in class the next day and said, "Here's our you want our project management plan? Here it is." And it was we had them do the whole team, the whole class worked as one team, and then they basically created a project management plan for a 5-month game development effort, which was final project at Full Sail. And so it depends on your team, it depends on your culture, it depends on what processes you already know and are familiar with, right? Ideally, the first time you do it, when your culture isn't maybe created yet, like Orlandopreneur, for example, our culture is still just me. There's a couple other people too. Hey, Nat. Hey, Joey. We're creating that culture, and that helps us drive the processes that we're using. That's and then as we bring more people in, those people, it's documented. A document, it's like paper. It's thing, right? They write it on paper, but the thing is once you have a document,
not my Microsoft Word,
Microsoft Word or Google Docs or whatever. But once it's written down, everybody in the company is now can literally be on the same page. You know what that does to your communications problems? Poof.
Yeah.
Right? Almost every company I've ever worked with had communications problems, and many of those communications problems killed the company.
Makes
so
sense.
If you ask the right questions as a leader of your company and get the right answers and then document those answers, then everybody else in the company isn't going to have those questions anymore.
Man.
Right?
So good.
So that's how a plan eliminates problems.
Checking the time here, make sure we're
I know I
adhering
talk
to
a
your
lot.
time
Yeah,
schedule.
yeah.
Let's see here.
You're going to ask me some other stuff. I don't know.
I was. I'm trying to think where exactly I want to take this.
Should I be scared?
So in this business realm, you have, I mean, man, you are well versed in many different ways. How have you found
A lot of effort and a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. Trust me. Yeah.
Oh, I can believe it.
Yeah.
Oh man. How have you found like the integration of this when it comes to like certain personal aspects, whether it's family time, friendship time, or you had mentioned like your research and sort of the like different church religions and all that. How have you found those aspects affected through your entrepreneurial journey?
I'm not sure how to answer that question. I'm still single. I mean, I was married before, but that was only just for 12 years. And I don't have children yet, which is my number one goal. But now, ageism has creeped in, and now I'm too old. People tell me I'm too old for this or too old for that. So I just say, you know what you can do with that. But in any case, it's because I've been working, 60, 70, 80 more hours a week since I was 20 years old. And, for my dreams, for my passions and my dreams. And I didn't have a work-life, balance. I mean, I had from time to time, but the last 10 years, maybe not. But
just all go
just
all the time.
Go. Yeah. And so my body's paid the price. My mind and my heart have paid the price. So now I'm switching gears this year. And, because most of my life I was broke, which is no joke. Hey, Josh.
Right.
And it's like, but then, I sell a company and now I got more money I know what to do with. And then what do? I'm either giving it away or I'm investing in another business and then back down again, and then back up again, and back down again. And for a potential mate, that is a huge red X, right? That financial instability.
Right.
So,
when you say that, like you would give it away, like what were the different ways, like literally charity or just people that seemed like they had opportunities that you wanted to give them a shot in?
Well, if I'm going to invest in something, then I'm actively involved in the company. That's why my rate's 60%, not 5%.
Right.
Okay. It's just, a lot of charitable work and things like that. But it is what it is. People need help. I was helping a friend the other day, and who got arrested by making a stupid mistake.
You?
No, no, no.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And so, he got arrested and, made a stupid mistake, got arrested. And so I've been helping him out and whatnot. And before that, he had, tough times. So I helped him out there. And now you got to understand, time is money too. So, when I'm helping
100%.
somebody doing one thing, I'm not making money doing something else.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, so that's
that is. I
it's
mean,
opportunity cost.
for
and people
sure.
don't understand what opportunity cost is until it's too late. And I'm like, hello.
So for a young entrepreneur that's like in that like 18, 19, 20, where like we've all been, where it's like, I'm gonna do everything.
Sure,
What
go for it.
What would you say to them, and like, how would you caution them when it comes to any idea of like work-life balance? What are some like caution signs you would give them to put up to have awareness?
Well, at that age, who gives a shit, right? I mean, you got your rest of your life ahead of you, right? You can spend 10 or 20 years of chasing after your business and becoming successful, and then now you're in a better position to find the right mate.
Yeah.
Okay, and have that work-life balance. That's what many people have done. People smarter than I am. But the three things I would tell, the number one thing I'm going to tell people like that you described, young, ambitious, have a dream, want to start a business or whatever. Number one is go associate with other entrepreneurs. Number one, nothing even comes close. Go to 1 Million Cups. Come to Orlandopreneur. Go to Orlando Tech Community. Go to National Organization of Women Business Owners. Go to Vistage. Go to anywhere. There's 3 Small Business Development Center. I mean, there's all the chambers of commerce, right? The Hispanic one the Mexico one just started. And just go to these chambers. Go meet other entrepreneurs and talk to them, get to know them, ask them questions. This is my idea. What do you think? Right? And then the more you talk to, the more feedback and knowledge and wisdom you can benefit from, which will help you when you plan your project to make it a smarter plan.
Yeah.
So that increases your chances of success. Right? And if you run into trouble, who is better able to help you out of that trouble than somebody who's had those troubles before? Right? We do it for relationships and counseling and this and that.
Yeah.
ADHD or whatever. Why not do it for entrepreneurship as well? So go hang out with other entrepreneurs.
Okay.
Go to car meets. Anybody?
Car meets?
Car meets.
Really?
There's about 6 or 7 car meets every month in this town. Like, on the weekends, there's at least 4 or 5.
What's up? Wow.
Excuse me. And, just walk up to the guy with the Lamborghini or the F40 or the McLaren or whatever. Ask them how they get that, and they'll tell you. They'll beat their chest and they'll tell you, and then you say, well, I want to start a business too. Are you interested in chatting about it? And if they're assholes, they'll say no. And if they're nice, they'll say happy to. Right?
Hot dog. That's simple, huh?
Yeah.
Person just has
simple.
to kind of get over their
Just get up there and just grab a part of your anatomy and squeeze and go up there. Just say, hey, hi, introduce yourself. It's okay. We're not going this isn't Parasite. We're not going to like, eat you alive. No, it's we're there. We're human beings. And if we've made it, then we're proud of it. Then we appreciate it when other people want to learn from us. So we're looking forward to having people like yourselves come up to people like me and saying, I've got a dream, I've got an idea, I want to start a business or whatever. Can you guide me?
You guys heard it, man. They want you to come up, want you to talk.
100%.
Ask the questions. All right. So I know we're coming up on your time marker here. So I'm going to go ahead and transition to some of the closing segments here. And And I know this whole thing has been filled with this, but of everything that we've covered, life lessons you've learned, anything like that, what are the top 3 things that a person absolutely must take away from this, think about, meditate on, pray on, and take action on? Top 3 things.
Oh, wow. Well, Napoleon Hill said it best: what you can conceive and believe, you can achieve. Okay, so believe that first. Put that in your head first. What you conceive, whatever idea you can come up with, dream or business idea or whatever, then believe in it. And once you believe in it, then you can achieve it, right? So a lot of people that are into manifestation will sit there and say, that's how you manifest it, right? The belief, through the strength of your belief, the universe will make it so. So it's the same thing, right? And if you believe in something, then you can pray to God about it, and God will help you believe in it through your faith, and then it'll happen, right? So it's the same thing, right? So conceive, believe, and achieve. That would be the first thing.
All right.
The second thing is, don't be afraid to take risks. However, you have to understand that there's positive risks as well as negative risks, right? And positive risks are called opportunities. And the last thing you want to do is mitigate your opportunities, right? There's strategies for taking advantage and managing or handling opportunities, just as well as there's multiple strategies for handling your threats, right? And the first one is avoid it altogether. And that's what a plan does. Why would you spend resources, time, money, and resources to mitigate a threat when you could just avoid it entirely, right? Through a planning. So take calculated risks, right? And the only way you can take a calculated risk on the negative side or the positive side is by talking to people who've been there, done that, and they'll help guide you on how to be calculated with that. And there's no substitute for experience, and you're going to experience it. However, you learn so much faster when you bring other people into the equation that it will help you, right? And we're all here to help. That'll help you and guide you through that process, okay? And then the third thing is just ask questions, for crying out loud. It's like, just ask. It's like there's and I'm not talking about the internet, and I'm not talking about AI, prompting, and I'm not talking about all these things. I'm talking about people. Talk to people. Okay? Ask questions of people. Okay? And eventually, when you get to the point where you know how to ask the right question of the right person at the right time in the right way, you're getting the right answers, right? And then you can act upon those answers by planning it and then executing. So those are my 3 things. I could probably come up with another 3 things later, but yeah, that's what comes to mind.
Hey, in June, I'll be doing 30 days of streaming, and I'm looking to fill out all 30 days. So I would love to have you back on, man.
Oh yeah, I'd love to.
Yeah,
I'd
yeah.
love to.
The next part of
Depends on how many love letters I get after this one.
Right? Have him back on, please. What are any 3 questions you have you may ask of me, and I'll answer completely truthfully?
Oh, I know what color your eyes are, so that question goes out the window.
I know, that's one of the most pertinent ones. They don't get to see it over there.
So where do you want to take this podcast?
I would love to take this podcast to be something that, I mentioned to you that like my goal with it is that a father can sit with his son and he can use it as a learning tool. I think this episode right here would be a huge, great episode that would contribute to that cause. But yeah, I'm going to get a lot of hot clips out of this.
I hope so.
But I would love to see this be So kind of culturally speaking,
Right.
as the Gen Z and Alpha come up, their influence is social media much more than it is people.
Right.
As they get older, it will shift to be men that are in their physical lives. But right now, it is men that's online who
Right.
are unapologetically masculine, for better or for worse. My goal is to have this podcast be a relevant voice in that conversation, giving relevant, whether it's business advice, dating advice, or wellness advice, talking about your spirituality, financial health, emotional health, all of that. But for it to be a relevant player in there and to have it be to the capacity that I can, of course, support my family on it.
Right.
And then I would love to get to the point where I can have somewhere around like 4 students, and I'm talking like from the middle school to the high school age, that I can have either working as either a nonprofit or that I can actually be paying them, having them in here, sitting in on conversations like these, setting up the equipment as I expand it, learning how to use it, building that skill set, learning how to use the different planning apps, building skills in video editing, all these different things that it takes to do this kind of thing. Being able to have 4 of those in that like young male area, because I know I was a creative young man,
Dude,
but
I can already hook you up, man.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
oh snap,
There's one of the, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but there's a number of programs in Orlando that start at 7 years old. And what we're doing is we're trying to collaborate, help them collaborate with each other so that we can take kids from 7 years old. The one program is 7 to 10. Then there's another program that's from 9 to 12, or actually 17. And then another program that takes them from 17 to 21. And then another program that takes. So we can literally take, a kid from 7 years old all the way up to, exit.
holy
Right.
smokes!
And so we're trying to get that thing going. But right now it's not my top priority because my top priority is Orlandopreneur and getting it and growing it. But that exists. Excuse me. And so I know the people, like there's a place in town. So this this massive Brazilian education conglomerate came to Orlando and they're building, actually their second school is probably open for business now.
Okay.
And they teach strong entrepreneurship. And I'm happy to introduce you to them and see if they'd be interested in having you teach podcasting or
I would
expose
love
the
that.
students to podcasting.
Yeah, I would love that. But yeah, that's like my heart, just to be able to support my family, have 4 young individuals that I can learn in all this in 6 month to 9 month stints. And then just to little by little grow it out more. I have very modest total aspirations for this. Beyond that, anything beyond that is just like extra pudding on it.
You'll come up with something, I'm sure.
I'm sure once I hit each of the milestones, I've been humbled enough within the past week and a half that I'm keeping it modest right now.
Right. Well, there's some people that say if you're constantly hitting your goals, you're not setting them high enough. I was brought up before I went to the academy, I went to another school called Cranbrook, and their thing was aim high. So like shoot for the stars. But if you miss, at least you still land on the moon.
Yeah.
So, but then again, without the right plan, you're not going to hit either. You're just going to go for a wild ride. Right?
Yeah.
So if you have a dream, you want to accomplish it, plan it out, get the right people, understand the processes, and just do whatever it takes.
Yeah.
Do whatever it takes. And within, don't hurt anybody else.
Right.
Don't screw anybody else or anything like that. But yeah, just everything has to be a win-win situation. Right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, your chances of success are minimized.
Yep. And that's his definitely element that I'm looking to. This I'm gonna have to watch this back a few times and really be like, oh man, I got to do that. Pause the video.
All y'all watch this like 563 times.
I would love to get that per viewer.
So, but yeah. So take it there, all right? But you got to sit down and you got to plan it out.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. So, I have an assumption.
Oh.
And my assumption is that you're married, so your wife or your spouse is on board with these entrepreneurial activities that you have.
This is correct.
Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yep. In fact, like when it comes to this right here, as you see, I've got it in this room. And when it comes to this, I actually had the option to be able to do this with a company. And it was a marketing company. They heard me talking about it. I talked their ear off about it while I was interning with them.
Sure.
And eventually he was like, okay, put together a proposal for exactly how this is going to work and we'll make it roll. Basically, I'm very into my faith. And it ended up with me pitching it as a sponsorship instead of as a function of the company. And that pissed him off. I got fired right there. Now, he allowed me to continue to use the resources the company had for networking purposes and stuff like that.
Right. But
honestly, I had a little bit of guilty angst about it. And so I never did. But
you won't make that mistake again.
It was definitely something where I was like, okay. And part of that was me telling she was my girlfriend at the time. This is what I'm thinking of doing. I wanted to do this. And she's like, hey, I'm about to finish my medical schooling residency. I will be willing to help you achieve this, finance this.
Sure.
So she became a partner in it. My uncle became a partner in it. I had a brother who helped finance me while I was interning with the company.
You're a blessed man.
Definitely so.
You're a blessed man. That's awesome.
And we said within a year, we need to see X amount of growth.
Sure.
And in that year, we didn't see it. So I was looking like, I'm about to have to hang it up. And then I tried a little something. I ran an ad where I was talking about my faith. And that caused over 870 people to decide that they wanted to follow along with it. Now, this doesn't reflect in my metrics. You wouldn't know it.
Yeah.
But at some point, they saw that specific clip and they said, I want to follow along. And so that was enough for her to see and to be like, okay, well, you pulled the trigger on something and you made something happen. So I'm willing to see what the next whether it's 6 months or the next year looks like, and then we'll reevaluate again.
So, I don't know what kind of reading you do, if any, but I would suggest reading Mark Cuban, Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, because all of them, none of them were profitable for years. They were sleeping on their friends' couches. They were selling whatever they had to eat. I mean, they were living in roach-infested apartments. I mean, they were, right? It's not glamorous.
Yeah.
It's not glamorous, all right? And I know a lot of guys, a lot of people, women as well, that, are very successful. And, they admit that they got lucky, but then on the first part, but then they really planned and everything else. They learned the importance of planning, and then they took off. And so, they achieved their goals, and they just kept setting higher goals. So
man,
you can get there too, man. You never know. You never know.
I will say, to hear, I think one of the parts about this that stood out to me the most is where you said that for the class, you would have them go out in groups of 5 and interview 20 people each for a total of 100, and then use that to kind of build their market research.
All these people that are listening are perfect.
Yeah.
Put a link on the page or whatever, and say, please answer these 5 questions. And to help me out, or you might want to juice it up and say, hey, to win this camera, or whatever.
Well, I did have a giveaway at 1,000 subs. I said, people that do XYZ things, you'll get $100. And time came and I gave 3 people $100.
Okay.
So-
So Gleam does that automatically. Are you familiar with Gleam?
Gleam? No.
So we used it for our gaming products. And so what Gleam is you go to the site and then it's free to use and you set up like anywhere from 1 to 20 or 30 things for people to do. And then they have to do all those things. And if whoever does all those things, then I've used it before too. And I'm going to use it for GLEAM.io.
Okay.
And so then they set it all up and then they keep track of everything and so forth. And then whoever completes all those things, then they're now entered to win, whatever you want to give away.
That's awesome. I'm definitely going to look into that.
Yeah.
Because I was looking for something as I was putting it together, and all I could find was this bunch of like stuff that looked like it came from 2007 and was not updated since then.
Yeah, and there's other services like Gleam that do pretty much the same thing.
Yeah.
But that's the one I've been using. But,
I'll check it out for sure.
But in any case, so ask these are your stakeholders.
Yeah.
Right? These are people that are either involved or interested or impacted or influenced by what you do.
Yeah.
So ask them what they think.
That's a good point. Before we go to the last closing segment, I do want to take a quick second to just give a shout out to our man, Mr. Starstruck. We had him on for the show, but this was right after the 1-year anniversary. And as a result, I did not have several things correctly set up. So if you could help me to make that episode worth his time, because the entire thing got corrupted, go to his channel. It'll be linked in this video, as well as with all of the Inspired Challenge links and with all of Rupert's links. It'll be below all of ours. And show that man some love for taking the time out to come into the Inspired Challenge podcast. Rupert, the last segment of the show. What is something that you have right now in life that you either would want to confess on this show, that you are struggling with, or that you want to give a praise about? What is something that I and the audience can come around you in prayer about?
Well, my biggest problem is my execution dysfunction, right? I don't follow up very well. So I've got like a stack of business cards literally this high on my desk from people that I've met since I started Orlandopreneur that I haven't followed up with. And so I've got a coach. For the first time in my life, I have someone to mentor me now.
Really?
To help me get through this, and it's a holistic approach, from supplements to books to whatever.
Wow.
And so I'm going through this process, and as I've gotten older, it's gotten worse. So you think it's bad when a kid has ADHD? And so in any case, so I just once I can get through this and manage it and handle it to a point where I'm starting to execute the plans that I'm writing, and finishing the plans, finishing the plan, and then executing on the plans, then I'm going to achieve my goals. No question about it.
Love it.
So if you want to pray for me for that, much obliged. Namaste.
Absolutely. And I love that you pointed out, because something that I talk about on the show constantly is that the place where we see men go from whatever their young adults or regular adult age place to that next step typically involves when that person takes on a mentor or somebody that can pour into them, or that can fill them, or that can just help them with a certain perspective that they wouldn't be able to see themselves because they're just so busy with where they're at. And so I love that you brought that up And I don't plan for people to say these things, but you guys, you have to see that like mentorship is always an aspect of your growth, especially as a young man trying to figure out what you're doing in this 2024 age, whether it's your dating life or it's your career field or with any part of your wellness, managing your mind, managing your emotions. A mentor has so much more to give you than you can get just from trying to piece together these pieces of podcasts and books and trying to make your own little soup of it. Finding somebody that's already got a good grasp on things that you want to achieve is so much more the better way to go. So I appreciate that you brought that up there.
Sure.
So you guys, at this time, let's go ahead and close this out with a prayer for Rupert. All right, so I'm going to put my hand on you, and we'll go ahead and get into it.
Okay, great.
All right. Dear Lord and Heavenly Father, we thank you for this time that we were able to take on this Friday. We know it's the party day. It's the day where we wrap up business and we just get ready to go into some of our downtime. Although for Rupert, we know that maybe there is none of that. And so I'm just grateful, Lord, that he was able to take the time out of his busy schedule to make it here and to be on this show with us. It's truly a blessing to myself and to everybody that's going to watch this to be able to hear his knowledge, hear his wisdom, and to be able to take action steps from those things, Lord. And we just pray that for the audience, they will take action, they will make a plan, and they will execute on that plan. 20%, take 20% of their time in order to plan out the rest of the 80%. And we just pray that we can keep that heartily in mind, Lord. For Rupert, God, we want to lift up what he's doing right now as he seeks to just take control of these things that have been eluding him in the follow-up. We know that that's something that it can be so difficult, especially when all different factors of life start creeping in, whether it's obligations, promised time, just age, everything. We know that it all comes into play. So we just pray that you would allow him to lean into the person that he has selected that has the qualifications to be a source of help, of reminder, of all of that will help him get these things on track. We pray that he would be just willing to take that helping hand. We know that he does so much for everyone that he comes into contact with, that he meets, and he's truly a real light and a star in the Orlando community. And we just pray that he would be able to be blessed by those just as much as he blesses everyone, Lord. We know we don't get a lot of people of this genuine nature. And so we just pray that you would give him the love and the support and the encouragement that he needs from his peers, from those that he's looking to serve, and those that are looking to pour into him, God. We thank you, Lord, for being someone that has given us a great man like Rupert, for the talents that you give each of us individually. And we just pray that we can utilize them to your honor and to your glory. And it's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, brother.
Absolutely.
Appreciate you. Thank you. Appreciate it.
You guys, this has probably been one of our top, if not our top business episode. It's been a true pleasure, Rupert. And you guys, we're going to take the weekend off, and then we'll be back next week with interviews. Make sure to go look at Rupert's platforms, check it out, send him email. I think that was one of the links that I got from him. Send him an email, a thanks for coming on the show. And until the next time, I will see you guys on the next episode of the Inspired Challenge podcast. Take care. And we are off air.
Ba-ding.
Woo-wee! Man, that was hot.